Hey guys, I'm trying to make a video here as a cautionary tale and show you what not to do when you're building a shop. When you build a sheet metal building like this, where you've got steel or wood construction, and you have this pre-existing fiberglass like this, this is my recommendation, and I'll tell you why. If you're going to build this building, first of all, do not use fiberglass. Use spray foam, way better, and wait until your building is done. If you're not building it yourself, have them build your building with no insulation. Okay? And here's why. This is where all these contractors cut corners. And I don't, maybe it's not a cut corner, maybe it's a, tolerancing issue. Okay, let me show you what I'm talking about here. So I have ripped out this huge amount of insulation. Why? Because this is what happens. Rodents come in and build themselves little nests in here, and you won't find out till years later until they chew through this stuff. So as you can see here, you can see daylight out the bottom of this sheet metal. So I have this heavy steel plate, and then that sheet metal is supposed to be 100% alongside the concrete outside. And I'll show you the outside in a minute. Actually, let's just check that out. Hey, kitty, get to some mousing. Here's the other area. Absolute effing nightmare, guys. And this is actually the worst. Okay, so we have gaps here. Okay, and then you have insulation, okay, going up like so, up into there. And then in this case, they put in some studs, put in another layer of insulation, which I don't know if you can, I think I've ripped all that out. So this plastic here represents insulation that was here just between these 2x4s down to the ground. So what that creates is this area here between, there's like an 8-inch gap between this insulation on this wall and the insulation here right behind where drywall. So here's drywall, and then here the drywall, continues like so. There's insulation here, and so you have this almost 1 foot section area where mice come in. And it's not only mice, you get spiders, and you get snakes, and you get roaches, and you get any other critter that finds this crevice. They chew through the insulation layer, and now they have a layer of insulation, a gap, and more insulation. Well, how much better of a habitat can you provide for rodents? See how you can see daylight under there? You shouldn't be able to see that. So what you need to do is, when they build you a sheet metal building like this, you need to leave it uninsulated, and you need to put, to do it properly, you probably need to put 4 to 6 inches of concrete to seal up every possible spot where stuff is going to come in. Okay? There's a nice couple of dead rodents there. I've picked out at least 5 dead rodents here. Let me show you the telltale sign of this, okay? So you'll see this is going on. All right, here's the outside, and you see how, the concrete along the bottom, like here it's pretty decent, like that there is normal. That's decent. That's gonna keep most things out. But you see here, you've got a gap. You've got a gap. You've got a gap, and that's because the concrete slab is not exactly where it needs to be, or the heavy steel plate behind this, or attached to this foundation, this slab, is just out, just a few millimeters too far, and this concrete crumbled just a little bit. And so right here you can see the insulation on the ground. So mice are coming up in there, all these little gaps, they're chewing on the insulation, it's dropping out, and they're making their way into that gap. And this is, I didn't build this building, but the people that did had money. they had pretty deep pockets. All right, so they maybe they weren't conscious of things like this, but you know, if you're gonna go to the effort to build you, let's say, you know, $100,000 shop building or more, man, spend the extra 500 or 1,000 or whatever it costs you to seal all these gaps before you insulate it. Which brings me to spray foam. If this was closed cell spray foam, the mice would have a lot harder time getting through it. But that's not really the solution. The solution is you need to concrete in all of these gaps. So you need to go take yourself, you know, a big heap of concrete and shove it down in there. And in these corners here, wherever you see daylight, go around and do this before it gets insulated. It's an absolute must. Or, you know, have them do the insulation, but leave the last foot or so uninsulated. Fill all the gaps, put some concrete there, spray foam over it. You know, there's a couple different solutions, but here's another one. So, see all these spider things here? So every single thing is going to get in here. You know, and it's not going to happen right away. You know, it might happen the first year. It might happen 6 or 7 years later. But either way, any way you look at it, I've had to rip out all this drywall, all this insulation. It's now super nasty. I've sprayed chemicals to kill any bacteria, viruses, whatever. This is dangerous, by the way, okay? Because if you get enough rats in here, there's certain viruses that rodents carry, and you really don't want that in your building, right? You don't want viruses, you don't want mold, you don't want these giant spider nests going on. So I have now learned the hard way that this little it's a very little thing to cut a corner here, but man, it's so frustrating because now you got, look at this. I mean, now you got to rip all this crap out, you got to haul all this trash away, which is nasty, and now you got to fix it. So now, you know, instead of you coughing up an extra $1,000, let's say, to fill these gaps properly and seal it up, now you got to rip stuff out, and it's more costly. So cheaper to do it right in the beginning, easier to do it right in the beginning. Save yourself this infestation problem. Now, luckily, the mice really weren't getting into the shop. This is what puzzled me. But then once I ripped all this out, I figured, well, hey man, if I was a mouse, this is perfect. I got a 8-9 inch gap, insulated on both sides, no predators. It won't freeze in there because it's heated in here. So they got a nice toasty warm spot, and they can have 100 of them having their little party in there. So, this is just something that, man, I can't believe it was overlooked. And like I said, I've already cleaned most of this out here, right? But like, it gets nasty, nasty, nasty in there. Once you start having, a dozen dead rodents in there, man, you don't want to deal with that. So anyway, cautionary